Hey everyone, welcome into DomTime. Thanks for joining us tonight. Week 3 of being white in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Magazine story that has now bubbled up to national news, and Mayor Nutter's reaction to it, among others. A couple of events going on in town this week around this. Let's go to some more callers. Joe in Manahawkin. Joe, thanks for the wake. Go right ahead.
Okay, Dom. Good evening, Dom.
Hi, Joe.
In my opinion, this article in that magazine was written to fuel controversy, which would give that magazine a lot of free advertising and to increase its circulation. It's an outrage.
What's an outrage about it?
Well, to get all that free publicity for the magazine. That whoever wrote this article knew it was going to be controversial.
Well, what's wrong with that, though? I mean, if these are people that he's talking with that hold this view, and he has a point, the broader point is he feels that whites have to be politically correct around race and other races don't. Is that out of bounds to write about and talk about?
Well, no, it's not. But you could talk about this from now to doomsday. It doesn't do any good. It just fuels the fire. Just people have to get along.
Okay, fair enough. Do you guys agree with that? We shouldn't talk about this?
I'm not saying that we shouldn't. It's the direction that you take to talk about it, to actually make it a conversation.
Okay.
You know, so I do agree with him. It is fuel to the fire, you know, because sitting as an African American listening to this type of depiction, it is fuel to the fire, because it's like, where do you start the conversation? At 100 in the middle of heat based on the angle? Because it's not across the board great view of who we are.
Okay, there were, though, a lot of dimensions to this, too. There were Hubert talking about the Mount Airy Wawa, where I go, too, and holding the door a little bit longer for a person of a different race. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but I hold the door longer for everybody, you know, and if, in fact, that a person feels that way, maybe they need to make some adjustments within themselves.
Well, wait a minute. Suppose I hold the door open longer for someone like you coming in versus than for Chrissy. And I'm doing it out of a sense of trying to get along. You mean to say that's not a good act, that there's something wrong with that?
It doesn't really register to that magnitude, because there's still no conversation. There's no true interaction.
It's a subtle conversation.
Subtle, yeah, but you know, those type of things go unnoticed, because we're supposed to hold the door for each other regardless. You know, it's not supposed to be more for Chrissy and, you know, less for me.
Well,
or
I do
vice
hold
versa.
it more for a woman than for you.
Yeah.
I'll say that too. I'm a sexist too.
Yeah, but
okay.
you know, I think that if people just get to the point of just doing for others, then they'll never feel any strain of race. You know, I don't feel a strain of race to hold the door for you any different than I do for an African American. I just hold the door just out of courtesy.
Okay. William in Wilmington is next. William, you're with us here on DomTime. Go right ahead.
Yes, good evening, panel. Like I said, I am a 40-year-old African American, and I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and I pretty much grew up around all different cultures on my entire existence upon this earth. And my parents always told me to respect a person for who they are and not what they are, regardless of what color skin. And it amazes me that when you see articles like this, you cannot judge a race just on the actions of a few people. Okay, and that's what seems like a lot of these race-baiting articles have been about. You know, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad in every race. Okay, why is it that the negative is always seems to overshadow the positive? That's the only question that I have.
Okay, thanks. You can answer that. My answer would be, why the negative? Because that's what news is, sadly. When things are normal and everybody goes about doing what they're doing, that's not news. When there's something out of the ordinary, that's why it's newsworthy.
Out of the ordinary in a negative way is always
sure.
newsworthy?
Well, sure.
I'm not sure.
Well, if somebody does something spectacular, obviously, that would be news too. Let me talk about another part in here too. Now, you lived at 21st and Diamond. I forget the exact address, but I think it was right around Diamond Street where he begins the piece with his son.
He does, 19.
And they talk about with a cop who talks about how dangerous this is there, particularly along racial lines living there.
Correct.
Was there anything objectionable about that? You live there.
I think that it's valid to say you should use your street smarts. I think you should be equipped to know if you're entering a dangerous situation, and this applies to any college campus essentially. You, as a woman, I can speak to the fact that I take additional precaution as a woman, whether it be at night, walking alone.
No, I'm talking
and things of that
specifically though about the 23rd and 24th Police District, which are the highest crime in the city.
I can honestly say I've seen a great deal of crime against Temple students.
Right.
I was not one of them.
Okay.
I lived there for 6 years as a homeowner, 9 years plus, including as a Temple student.
Okay.
I will say that I went out of my way to interact with those in my surroundings.
Okay.
I went out of my way to form relationships. And as such, I felt that I was connected to these people in a certain fashion that allowed for me to be comfortable and know that an example I provided earlier was I worked late hours, and when I came home late, my neighbor across the street would watch me from his window to make sure I got in safely.
Right.
That's because I formed a relationship with him with the foundation of respect.
Okay, let's go to Hashim. Is it Hashim in North Philly? Hi, Hashim.
Yes,
Welcome in.
All right, what I have is a comment. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I was raised up in the Spring Garden area, and the same way that the system had raised taxes up and had the poor people move deeper into North Philly, it seemed to go around. And they must understand that Mayor Nutter have a black skin, a black face, and we believed on him helping the poor out. It's all about helping the poor out. But he either been brainwashed or either he had been taught how to think about money, capital. He never visited the North Philly area, and he don't care if anyone died, the house burned down, the children been kidnapped.
Okay, Hashim, thank you. Thanks very much for the call, but that's for another show. So bottom line out of this, Mark, what would you like to see happen? I know tonight we have this panel talking, as we're on the air right now, about race. There's an event in Love Park where I know the people I've had on the air that are African-American, youngish, that want Bob Huber to meet them and interact with them. Huber, I think, will say, I live in that area, or I'm around people of different races. So fine, he's going, but what would you like to see come out of this, if anything?
Just a greater communication, a greater respect. You know, just because you live in the neighborhood don't mean that you're really interacting with that neighborhood. You know, is he going hanging out at the football games? Is he sitting at the basketball courts? Is the neighborhood identifying with who he is and vice versa? Because he's really a part of being intertwined in that neighborhood? It's a big difference.
Okay,
you know?
And Chrissy, how about you? What would you like to see come out of this?
I'd like to see, much like Mark, I'd like to see greater communication. I think that there is an opportunity to really bridge this divide, and I think that we can relate in better terms.
Okay, well, thank you both. We'll see how this plays out. Thanks for joining us tonight here on DomTime. You're welcome. And coming up here on DomTime, as we get into week 3 of being white in Philadelphia, I'm going to use my remaining minute to talk about the First Amendment. And the mayor of the city of Philadelphia, Mayor Nutter, who was denied his First Amendment right earlier last week when he spoke before a group of unions, and yet I think he's doing the same thing to Philadelphia Magazine. That's straight ahead on DomTime. Hey, I'd like to welcome to DomTime a new sponsor, the Keswick Theater in Glenside, Pennsylvania. And April 4th, you can see Living Color. April 5th, One Night of Queen. This is a great venue. I've been there many times. Welcome to the Keswick Theater. The mayor of the city of Philadelphia, Mayor Nutter, last week spoke before a bitter crowd of union people in Philadelphia City Hall chambers, and he tried to give his budget address to the citizens of Philadelphia. His First Amendment rights were denied by a group that doesn't get it, that you don't have a right, you don't have a First Amendment right to shout down a speaker, particularly the mayor of the city trying to deliver this address. You would think the mayor would learn from this and not realize that he's trying to shout down Philadelphia Magazine, Philly Mag, by calling upon this group that I can only tell you reminded me of a kangaroo court when I've had to go through various things with people over the years, the Philadelphia Human Relations Commission. So now what will happen is Philadelphia Magazine will have to defend their First Amendment rights to raise some of the issues they've did, even if they've done it not so correctly. And that's a matter of debate that we had tonight. So Mayor Nutter, your First Amendment rights were denied. Why deny the rights of others, particularly in the city that gave us the First Amendment? I'm Dom Giordano. Thanks for watching DomTime.